The first cry cut through the frozen morning air at exactly 6 a.m. Sarah Miller stood at her kitchen window, coffee cup halfway to her lips, every muscle in her body suddenly tense. In 15 years of living in her Montana home, she had never heard anything like it. The sound came again, a haunting wail that seemed to hover between animal and human. The temperature outside showed 30 degrees below zero, the coldest morning of the year. Fresh snow had fallen overnight, covering her property in 3 feet of pristine white powder. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting long shadows across her backyard. That's when she saw it. Near her old garden shed, something massive lay half buried in the snow. At first, Sarah thought it might be a fallen tree branch, but then it moved. Her heart nearly stopped as she realized what she was looking for at. There, trapped in what appeared to be solid ice, was an enormous grizzly bear. The bear's massive body was almost completely encased in frozen snow, with only its head and one front paw free to move. Sarah watched in disbelief as the animal lifted its head and let out another cry. The sound made her skin crawl. It wasn't an aggressive roar or a threatening growl. It was a clear, desperate plea for help. Living in bear country had taught Sarah to be cautious around wildlife. At 52, she had seen her fair share of bears wandering through her property, especially during spring and fall. She knew the standard safety rules: make noise, keep your distance, never approach. But this situation was different. The bear was completely trapped, frozen in place by the freakish cold snap that had hit overnight. As Sarah watched, the bear's eyes met hers through the window. In that moment, something passed between them that she couldn't explain. The animal's gaze held no wildness, no fury at being trapped. Instead, she saw something that seemed impossible: intelligence, awareness, and most disturbing of all, a deliberate attempt to communicate. The bear's cries grew weaker as the minutes passed. Steam rose from its nostrils in diminishing puffs, and Sarah realized the animal was growing exhausted. Without help, it would surely die, trapped in its icy prison. The nearest wildlife rescue was 2 hours away, and the roads were likely impassable after the heavy snowfall. Sarah found herself reaching for her heavy winter coat and boots. Part of her mind screamed that this was madness. This was a wild grizzly bear, one of the most dangerous predators in North America. But another part of her knew she couldn't just stand by and watch it die. The bear's cries had awakened something in her, a deep sense that this moment was somehow important, somehow meant to be. As she pulled on her warmest clothes and gathered some basic tools, Sarah had no way of knowing that her decision to help would lead to something beyond her wildest imagination. The frozen bear held a secret, one that would not only shock her to her core, but would make headlines across the entire country. What waited for her outside would challenge everything she thought she knew about the natural world. Clutching a large pot of hot water and a shovel, Sarah carefully made her way across her snow-covered yard. The bear's eyes tracked her movement, but its cries had grown weaker, coming in short, desperate gasps. 20 feet from the trapped animal, Sarah stopped, her heart pounding against her ribs. The grizzly was even larger up close, its frozen fur covered in frost crystals that sparkled in the morning light. Sarah began pouring the hot water around the edges of the ice that held the bear captive. Steam rose in thick clouds and the ice began to crack and splinter. The bear remained unnaturally still, watching her work with an intensity that made her hands tremble. Its behavior defied everything she knew about wild animals. No panic, no thrashing, just those intelligent eyes following her every move. As the ice began to melt, Sarah noticed something odd. The snow around the bear had a strange bluish tint, unlike anything she had seen before. At first, she thought it might be a trick of the morning light, but as she moved closer, she realized the color was coming from beneath the bear, a faint glow, barely visible through the layers of ice and snow. The bear's eyes fixed on the blue glow, then back to Sarah, as if trying to draw her attention to it. Another layer of ice cracked and fell away, and the glow intensified. Sarah's hands shook as she cleared away more snow, revealing what appeared to be a perfect circle of blue light beneath the trapped animal, about 6 feet in diameter. The morning sun climbed higher, but the temperature remained well below zero. Sarah's fingers were growing numb despite her thick gloves, and her breath came in frozen clouds. She had to work faster. The bear's breathing had become shallow, and its eyes were starting to droop. Whatever was causing that mysterious blue glow, she knew she had to free the animal first. After 4 more trips back to her house for hot water, Sarah finally managed to melt enough ice around the bear's body. The blue circle beneath it was now clearly visible, pulsing with a light that seemed to come from deep within the ground itself. The bear's eyes were fully alert now, fixed on Sarah with an intensity that made her take a step back. What happened next would become the most shocking moment of Sarah's life. As the last of the ice cracked away, the bear slowly rose to its feet. Sarah retreated several more steps, expecting the animal to either flee into the woods or possibly charge at her. Instead, the massive creature deliberately placed one paw on the edge of the glowing blue circle. The air around them suddenly felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. The bear looked directly at Sarah and did something that would haunt her dreams forever. It raised its right paw and with deliberate purpose gestured for her to come closer. Sarah stood frozen in place, her mind struggling to process what she had just witnessed. The bear's gesture had been unmistakable, as deliberate as a human beckoning for help. The blue circle beneath its feet pulsed brighter, casting an otherworldly glow across the snow. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run, but something stronger kept her rooted to the spot. The bear made the gesture again, more urgently this time. As if responding to its movement, the blue light began to spread, creating a path between Sarah and the massive animal. The snow above the light started to melt, revealing something buried deep beneath her yard, something that explained why the bear had been so desperate for help. Metal. Ancient tarnished metal gleamed through the melting snow. A door perfectly circular and covered in what looked like warning signs lay embedded in the frozen ground. The bear stood at its center, and now Sarah understood. The animal hadn't just randomly become trapped here. It had been trying to expose this entrance, to reveal what lay hidden beneath her property. Sarah's hands trembled as she stepped closer, drawn by a mixture of fear and overwhelming curiosity. The bear remained perfectly still, watching as she approached the edge of the metal door. Up close, she could see that the warning signs weren't ordinary hazard symbols. They were government markers, faded with age but still legible. The date stamped across the top made her gasp. 1962. Suddenly, the bear's strange behavior made sense. This wasn't just any grizzly. This was something else entirely. The animal reached down with one massive paw and pressed it against a specific point on the metal surface. A mechanical whirring sound broke the morning silence, and the door began to move. Sarah stumbled backward as a burst of warm air rushed up from the opening chamber. The bear stepped aside, revealing a staircase that descended into darkness. From below came more blue light and the unmistakable hum of machinery that had been running silently, hidden beneath her property for over 60 years. The bear turned to face her, and in that moment, Sarah saw something that made her question everything she thought she knew about the world. Around the animal's neck, nearly invisible against its fur, was a worn leather collar. Attached to it was a metal tag that caught the morning light. The faded words made her blood run cold. Project Guardian, U.S. Government, Classified Assets 7. This wasn't a wild bear that had become trapped by accident. This was something that had been deliberately created, a secret that had literally shown up on her doorstep. The animal's intelligent eyes held hers, and she knew that this morning's events were no coincidence. The bear had chosen her property, chosen her for a reason. From deep within the underground chamber came a sound that made Sarah's heart stop. Another cry, identical to the one that had first drawn her attention, but this time it wasn't coming from the bear in front of her. More glowing eyes appeared in the darkness below, and Sarah realized with a mixture of terror and awe that this was just the beginning of something much bigger than she could have imagined. The bear took one step toward the entrance, then looked back at her expectantly. In that moment, Sarah faced a choice that would change her life forever. She could call the authorities, report what she had found, or she could follow this extraordinary creature into the depths and uncover a secret that had been buried beneath her property for over half a century. The staircase descended 30 feet into the earth, each step illuminated by the same mysterious blue light that had first caught Sarah's attention. The bear moved with surprising grace down the metal stairs, its massive form somehow managing to fit through the passage. Sarah followed, her flashlight beam bouncing off walls lined with faded photographs and technical diagrams. The temperature grew warmer as they descended, a stark contrast to the freezing world above. At the bottom, Sarah found herself in a vast circular chamber that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Banks of old computers lined the walls, their screens flickering with the same blue glow. But it was what stood in the center of the room that made her knees go weak. A large containment area, surrounded by reinforced glass, housed 3 more bears identical to her rescue. Each wore the same leather collar with government tags. As Sarah watched, the bears moved with eerily coordinated precision, operating simple control panels with their paws. They were working together, maintaining this hidden facility as they had apparently been trained to do decades ago. The bear she had freed made a deep rumbling sound, and the others turned to face them. One by one, they approached the glass, each raising a paw in the same deliberate gesture she had witnessed above ground. These weren't just trained animals. They were something far more extraordinary. The government had somehow created bears with enhanced intelligence, designed to guard and maintain this secret underground facility. On a central desk, Sarah found a folder marked Operation Sentinel. With trembling hands, she opened it, revealing photographs dated 1962. They showed scientists working with bear cubs, using methods she could barely comprehend to enhance their cognitive abilities. The goal had been to create the perfect guardians for sensitive government installations. Creatures with the strength and endurance of bears, but with near-human intelligence. The project had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations, but something in the final report suggested why it had been abandoned. The bears had become too intelligent, too independent. They had started making their own decisions about what needed protecting and why. The facility had been sealed, the project officially terminated, but the bears had continued their vigil, passing their knowledge down through generations. Now, after decades of silence, they had chosen to reveal themselves. The original bear approached a central console and pressed several buttons with deliberate care. A screen flickered to life, displaying a satellite image of the surrounding mountains. Red dots pulsed at specific locations across the map, and Sarah understood. There were more facilities, more secrets buried in the wilderness, and something had forced these extraordinary creatures to break their long silence. Another file caught her attention, dated just last week. It contained detailed printouts showing seismic activity in the region. The bears hadn't just been maintaining this facility, they had been monitoring something far more dangerous. According to the data, a massive earthquake was imminent, one that could potentially expose all the hidden installations in the area. The bear that had first cried for help now stood beside her, its intelligent eyes fixed on the seismic readings. Sarah realized why they had chosen her. As a local resident, someone who could alert the authorities without raising suspicion about the bear's true nature, she was their best hope for preventing a disaster that could expose decades of government secrets. Sarah pulled out her phone, her hands shaking as she dialed the local ranger station. How could she possibly explain what she had discovered? A secret government program from the Cold War, bears with enhanced intelligence, and a looming natural disaster that threatened to expose it all. The bears watched her intently as she pressed the call button, knowing that everything depended on what she would say next. Forest Service, this is Ranger Tom speaking, a calm voice answered. Sarah gripped her phone tighter, looking at the bears who watched her expectantly. The seismic data on the screen continued to flash warning signals. This is Sarah Miller at 442 Pine Creek Road, she began, trying to keep her voice steady. I need to report some unusual seismic activity in the area. She deliberately avoided mentioning the bears, knowing how impossible their existence would sound over the phone. The ranger's tone shifted to one of immediate interest. Can you be more specific, Miss Miller? We've had some unusual readings ourselves this morning. The bear beside her nodded slowly, encouraging her to continue. I have access to some old government monitoring equipment, Sarah said carefully. It's showing signs of significant underground instability throughout the mountain range. I think we might be looking at a major event within the next 48 hours. The bears moved closer to the screens, their attention focused on new data appearing across the monitors. As she spoke, one of the bears pressed several buttons on the control panel. New images appeared, showing a network of similar facilities connected by underground tunnels throughout the mountains. Many were dangerously close to the predicted earthquake zones. If they were exposed, decades of government secrets would be revealed to the world. Ms. Miller, the ranger's voice had grown serious. "I'm going to connect you with someone else. Please hold the line." There was a click, and a new voice came on the phone, this one carrying the unmistakable authority of high-level government command. "This is Colonel Richards, Special Operations Division," the voice said. "Ms. Miller, please listen carefully. Do not move from your current location. A team is being dispatched to your coordinates immediately." The bears exchanged glances, and Sarah realized they had been waiting for this exact moment. The original bear, the one she had freed from the ice, moved to a large safe embedded in the wall. With surprising dexterity, it entered a complex sequence of numbers into the keypad. Inside was a single red folder marked Protocol Omega. The bear carefully removed it and brought it to Sarah. As she opened the folder, Sarah understood the true magnitude of what she had stumbled into. The bears weren't just guardians of secret facilities. They were part of a backup plan intended to prevent catastrophic exposure of government projects in exactly this type of emergency. They had chosen her as their human contact precisely because she lived above one of the primary control centers. Within 30 minutes, the sound of helicopters filled the air above. The bears calmly began shutting down systems, erasing databanks, and preparing the facility for what would come next. Sarah watched in amazement as they worked with precision and purpose, carrying out procedures they had rehearsed for decades. Heavy footsteps on the metal stairs announced the arrival of a special operations team. The soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, but even their trained composure faltered at the sight of the intelligent bears calmly operating complex equipment. Colonel Richards himself entered last, his face a mask of professional control, despite the extraordinary scene before him. "Ms. Miller," he said, "you've done your country a great service today." He turned to the bears and actually saluted them, a gesture they returned with dignified nods. Not many civilians ever learn about Project Guardian, and even fewer get to meet our longest-serving agents. In the next 24 hours, Sarah witnessed something few civilians had ever seen. Military teams worked alongside the intelligent bears, systematically securing and relocating sensitive materials from the underground facilities. The bears, it turned out, had predicted not just an earthquake, but a series of tremors that could have exposed multiple secret installations across the mountain range. Colonel Richards explained that Project Guardian had never truly been abandoned. Instead, it had evolved into something unprecedented. The enhanced bears had become partners rather than just test subjects, choosing to maintain their watch over these mountains for generations. Their intelligence had grown far beyond the original project's goals, but they had remained faithful to their mission of protecting government secrets. "The bear you found this morning," Colonel Richards said, showing Sarah a classified file, "is actually the grandson of one of our original subjects. These bears have been passing down their knowledge, training their offspring to maintain these facilities. What you witnessed was their emergency protocol. When they detected the coming seismic activity, they knew they needed human intervention." Sarah watched as the bears methodically prepared the facility for shutdown. They moved with purpose and intelligence, but also with a gentleness that defied their massive size. The bear she had freed approached her one last time, carrying something in its mouth. It was a small medallion, similar to the tags on their collars but gleaming new. "That's their way of making you part of their team," Colonel Richards explained. "These bears choose their human contacts very carefully. They watched you for months before deciding to reveal themselves. When you showed compassion this morning, helping despite your fear, you proved their choice was right." The medallion bore a simple inscription, "Project Guardian, Honored Ally." As Sarah held it, she felt the weight of the incredible secret she now shared. The bear gently pressed its nose against her hand, a gesture of trust and farewell. By nightfall, the evacuation was complete. The underground facility had been carefully stripped of its most sensitive contents, the bear's decades-long vigil coming to an end. As predicted, the first tremors began the next morning, but by then, all evidence of Project Guardian had been safely relocated. The bears were transported to a new facility, one better suited to their unique status as intelligent government assets. Sarah watched them leave, each one pausing to acknowledge her with that same deliberate gesture she had first witnessed in her backyard. "Will I ever see them again?" she asked Colonel Richards as the last transport prepared to depart. "That's up to them," he replied with a knowing smile. "They have their own ways of keeping watch over the things and people they consider important." In the years that followed, Sarah sometimes caught glimpses of large shapes moving through the trees around her property, especially during storms or times of trouble. The bears never revealed themselves openly again, but she knew they were there, continuing their silent guardianship of the mountains and its secrets. On cold winter mornings, when the snow lies deep around her cabin, Sarah often stands at her kitchen window, remembering that extraordinary day when a bear's cry for help led her into one of the government's most remarkable secrets. The medallion hangs beside her window, a reminder that sometimes the most incredible discoveries come when we choose compassion over fear. And somewhere in the mountains, enhanced bears continue their watch, their intelligence and dedication unknown to all but a select few. They remain ready to reach out again if needed, guardians of secrets that most of the world will never know existed. If you enjoyed this extraordinary tale of an unexpected encounter between human compassion and a frozen bear's mysterious plea for help, share it with fellow story lovers who appreciate tales of discovery and wonder. Stories like these remind us that sometimes the most incredible moments happen in our own backyards, when we choose to listen to unusual calls for help and face our fears with courage. Whether you're a nature enthusiast or simply someone who loves a good surprise ending, this story shows us that the world still holds amazing secrets waiting to be uncovered on even the coldest of mornings.